This video is about 3 minutes long, and it summarizes a little bit of material that I wasn't able to get to in my lecture about plant defense. Now, one thing that's interesting is that there are many plant pathogens who, as part of their infection of the plant, they secrete hormone-like chemicals. So they mimic plant hormones. And here in these pictures, you can see a lot of kind of crazy examples of plant growth. And these are all cases where a pathogen is infected, secreted a hormone, and really influenced the way the plant grows and develops. We've seen one example of this already. It's these green islands. Remember, a parasitic insect will lay its eggs on the leaf, and then as the larvae develop, they will secrete cytokinin. And one thing that cytokinin does is it inhibits leaf senescence. So in the spots where these larvae are growing, there's higher levels of cytokinin released by the insect, and that keeps those regions green and photosynthetic. Okay, so here's a thought question for you. Imagine a bacteria that infects the root cells of a plant. So in that last one, that was leaves. Now we're thinking about roots. And this bacteria is going to release a cytokinin-like molecule. What would the cells around that area be expected to do? So from our lecture about plant hormones, you might remember that there's this interaction between auxin, which is abundant in roots, and cytokinin. And so the answer is A, form a mass of undifferentiated tissue. Now, if you've got just high levels of auxin, then plant cells will develop into roots. If you have high levels of just cytokinin, then the cells will develop into leaves. But if you have high levels of both, then what you get is this sort of mass of undifferentiated cells called a callus. And out in nature, it's a structure that you see here in this other picture called a gall, and the bacteria will live inside that gall and take advantage of the photosynthase that the plant is producing. But again, it's the fact that there's already high levels of auxin in the roots, and then the bacteria are providing these high levels of cytokinin, and that's controlling the growth. Now, the bacteria that do this are called agrobacterium, and they have, of course, a chromosomal DNA, like all bacteria do, but they have this little extra piece of DNA called the tDNA. The T stands for transfer. And when these bacteria encounter a plant cell, they will actually transfer this little piece of DNA from their own cytoplasms. So this tDNA is transferred into the plant cell, and it becomes integrated into one of the plant chromosomes. So now this tDNA encodes enzymes for making cytokinin. So essentially what's happening here is the bacteria is engineering these plant cells to produce higher than normal levels of cytokinin. Now, people make use of agrobacterium for biotechnology. You can put any piece of DNA that you're interested in this tDNA, and it's one way to introduce new genes into plants.